I never thought an $800 fine for fishing could end with flashing police lights, a mob of neighbors screaming at me on the dock, and me holding the deed to an entire lake in my hands. But that's exactly how it happened. And if you want to know how a quiet handyman like me ended up buying a lake just to protect myself from my HOA president, let me start from the beginning. My name's Evan Miller. I'm the kind of guy who likes building things that last little shelves for old folks' benches for docks, ramps, and garages. Work you can touch, work that holds steady. When I first moved into Maple Ridge, the lake was the jewel of the neighborhood. It reminded me of my dad, the way he taught me to fish at dawn, whispering, "A lake is like a library. Son, the wind turns the pages." That lake felt like home from day one, but Maple Ridge came with strings attached. Or more like ropes tied tight. The HOA binder was thicker than a high school yearbook, rules for boats, kayaks. Noise, even the hours you could breathe by the water. The sign at the dock said dawn to dusk. To me, that meant I could fish early, watch the mist roll off the surface, listen to the soft slap of water. But Linda Pearson, the HOA president, had other ideas. Linda was one of those people who seemed born with a whistle in her mouth. Sun visor, clipboard eyes, sharp enough to cut through steel. The first letter came after a quiet morning by the water, a $200 fine for fishing before 7:00 a.m. The second came 2 days later, $350. Then, an $800 final notice. I stared at those envelopes, confused and angry. Dawn to dusk. That's what the sign said. I tried to reason with her. At the next HOA meeting, I raised my hand, calm as I could. "The sign says dawn to dusk," I told her. She lifted her chin, that tight little smile plastered on her face, and said, "The sign is a courtesy. The bylaws are binding. Section 18C, 7:00 a.m. to 9:00 p.m. When I asked why the sign didn't match, she said, "We'll replace the sign like it was my fault for reading the one standing in plain view." That was my first real taste of Linda's power, the way she could twist words until they strangled you, the way the room went silent, neighbors avoiding my eyes pretending they didn't hear. I tried to swallow the anger, but it burned all the same. From there, things got mean. I found warning notices taped to my door for unauthorized activities. A clipboard woman started following me to the lake, jotting notes, snapping photos like I was some kind of criminal. The handrail I'd rigged for my elderly neighbor Mr. Dawson was cut down by someone, and a note slipped under his mat said it violated code. He looked at me with watery eyes and apologized for causing trouble. That stung worse than any fine. And I'll admit, there was a moment I almost broke. I sat there staring at another notice when $800 due, threats of liens on my house, and I thought maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just being stubborn, clinging to a hobby that's not worth the fight. Was I wrong for wanting peace at dawn? Was it really so important to cast a line when no one else was awake? But then, Mason, this little 8-year-old kid from down the street, showed up at my door. He handed me a crayon, drawing me holding a giant fish, grinning. He wrote, "Thank you for fixing the dock," in the letters so big the Y turned into a little road. I put that picture on my fridge and it glowed like a small sun. That was my reminder. This wasn't about fines. It was about standing steady, about kindness being louder than control. So I started digging, not at the lake, but through records, old deeds, dusty maps. With help from a county clerk named Ruth, I discovered something Linda never bothered to check. The HOA didn't own the lake, not even close. A bank in another state held a forgotten note on the spillway parcel, didn't even realize it, and they were more than happy to sell it to me just to be rid of the headache. The day I signed those papers, the golden seal winking up at me, I felt a weight lift. I wasn't powerless anymore. I had the rope in my hands. I ordered a new sign, nothing flashy, just clear. Private lake. Entry by permit only. Safety, respect, community. That was the plan. But the minute Linda found out, she went nuclear. Flyers, rumors, emails claiming I was stealing water, plotting to drain the lake. And then, the morning the sign arrived, I carried it down to the dock and found 2 patrol cars already parked, lights flashing. Linda had called 911. She jabbed a finger in my chest, shouting, "You can't do this." Evan, the HOA owns this lake." The crowd gathered fast, neighbors in robes, flip-flops, phones out filming. My heart thumped not from fear, but from the weight of what I held. I pulled the deed from my folder, held it up so the seal flashed in the sun. "Not trespass," I said calmly. "I bought the lake." Gasps, laughter, disbelief. Linda froze mid-scream. Visor tilted. The officers studied the paper, frowns deepening. And then it all broke loose. Someone snapped a chain with bolt cutters. The dock bucked under the sudden weight of people rushing forward shouting. Boards groaned, splintered. A man slipped arms windmilling and fell toward the water. I didn't think I just dove. The cold swallowed me, bubbles burning my ears, but I caught his shirt, kicked hard, hauled him up, coughing. That was just the start. The sheriff himself arrived, pointing out the spillway, clogging water levels rising dangerously. If it burst, half the neighborhood would flood. People panicked. Linda screamed it was all my fault, pointing at me like I'd tampered with the gate. The sheriff's eyes weighed heavy when he asked if I touched it. My stomach dropped, but I knew what had to be done. I waded into the current, hands clawing at branches and debris jammed in the grate. The water roared, pulling at me, slamming me against metal. Pain shot through my arm, lungs burning, but finally the blockage gave. The flood surged free, the lake dropped back down. The ground stopped trembling. When I crawled out bleeding and soaked, the sheriff grabbed my arm and said flatly, "You just saved this place from a flood." Behind us, neighbors whispered. Some in awe, some still afraid, but none of them looking at Linda anymore. She stood alone, pale and furious. And still, she didn't stop. She threw everything she could at me. Emergency HOA meetings, threats of eviction, even hiring shady outsiders to inspect the community. Black SUVs rolled through at night, strangers stomping around like they owned the place. Sabotage followed, cut boards on the dock, tampered wheelchair brakes that nearly drowned an old woman. Every time, suspicion fell on me first. Every time I had to claw my way back with proof and steady hands. But the night it all came to a head, I knew it was the final battle. Trucks rolled up to the lake, men in boots, hauling chains and gear meant for demolition, not neighborhood safety. Their leader called out to me and the sheriff, "You think you saved this lake, Miller? Tonight, we take it back." The sheriff's deputies formed a line tense as bowstrings. Neighbors cowered in their doorways. Linda was there, too trembling now, realizing she had lost control of the very chaos she unleashed. I stepped forward, heart pounding, the deed heavy in my pocket. For weeks I had tried kindness, patience, reason. But standing there with chains rattling and shadows moving toward the shoreline, I knew the truth. This wasn't about fishing or rules or even ownership. It was about standing steady when someone tried to bully you out of your own life. The sheriff barked his order, deputies surged, and the men hesitated just long enough. In that hesitation, the balance shifted. The crowd saw through the noise, saw who was protecting them and who was endangering them. Linda's voice cracked one last time, shrill and desperate, but no one followed her. She was finished. And me, I just stood there on the grass, soaked, scraped my chest, heaving, watching the lake settle under the moon. I hadn't wanted a fight, but the fight found me. And in the end, the truth held. Sometimes standing steady is the only way to win.